Welcome to King 5. I'm Jessica Janner Castro. This is The Week, a look at what made headlines in our region, along with your weekend forecast. 11 people survived a float plane crash in the San Juan Islands on Thursday night. Kenmore Air said one of its planes made an emergency landing and then caught fire near Susha Island. Boaters, campers, the Coast Guard, and first responders rushed in to help, pulling passengers from the water and taking them to safety. 10 passengers and the pilot are all accounted for, with several suffering serious injuries. The San Juan County Sheriff's Office said one person who was hurt is in critical condition. The NTSB and the FAA are investigating what led to the crash. Here's what we know so far.
Vacationers enjoying the perfection of a San Juan Island summer recall the grotesque scene that unfolded before them yesterday.
Because when you see the smoke like that, you immediately think, this is not going to be good.
Seconds after the plane went down in Shallow Bay, locals jumped into action.
It was amazing to me the amount of people that hopped on board to help.
I didn't know what situation we were going to find people in.
Emily Johnson was one of them, an off-duty nurse practitioner on vacation with her in-laws.
Took the dinghy into shore, and then I grabbed a stranger's kayak and jumped in and went out to where the survivors were.
Emily and dozens of others, some doctors, others were told pilots, putting their expertise to work. Emily helped triage patients until medics arrived about 30 minutes after the crash.
You could throw me in any OB emergency and deliver a baby anywhere and I would be fine, but broken bones and head injuries are quite a bit different.
Today, salvage crews pulled the plane from the shallow water along the rocky shoreline. Piece by piece, it's brought to the surface so investigators can piece together the puzzle of exactly what went wrong. Emily is grateful for the heroism of the pilot in saving all 11 souls on board. Her real vacation can begin now.
We're leaving this island today. Yeah, we're going to head out to one of the different San Juans and hope it's a little more peaceful.
People here tell us they can't say enough about the civilians, the vacationers who became first responders and helped keep this situation from becoming a horrible tragedy. Off Susha Island, Eric Wilkinson, King 5 News.
A new legislative audit reveals concerns about conditions inside Washington's juvenile rehabilitation system. The review points to growing pressure at two major facilities, along with high turnover among staff. King 5's Natalie Swaby explains what investigators say needs to change and how the state is responding.
Overcrowding is fueling fights, assaults, and contraband.
Random pills, candy bars, fentanyl.
Inside Washington's largest juvenile rehabilitation, or JR, facilities. That's according to a new report from the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Committee.
There are points about the lack of safety for staff and for young people when there's overcrowding. We completely agree, and we've been shouting from the rooftops about that.
Two facilities, Green Hill and Echo Glen, house about 74% of all young people convicted of crimes, and both are packed near or above safe operating capacity.
JR is very unique. We are the only state in the country that does JR to 25.
The Secretary of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families told lawmakers that last week, pointing to Washington's system, which lets people who committed offenses before turning 18 serve their sentences in youth facilities until age 25. Back in 2018, minors made up more than 60% of the population. Last year, that flipped. Adults 18 and over made up the majority. Then comes the hiring problem.
We have had challenges staffing up.
Nearly half of frontline workers walk away within their first year, citing concerns about feeling unsafe, unprepared, and unsupported on the job. At Green Hill, the exodus hit even harder. 55% of security staff quit before finishing year one. Among the report's recommendations, improve staff training.
We don't have enough staff to go out to do more training because we need them on the floor to ensure that we are providing safe ratios that are required by federal law and state law and best practice. And so these are very interconnected.
The state agency will issue a formal response to the report and its recommendations in the coming weeks. In Seattle, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
A man sought asylum in the U.S. because he feared for his life in Russia for being gay. But ever since he stepped foot on American soil, he has been detained. King 5's immigration reporter Sharon Yu tells us how one man's journey to find safety has turned into a years-long nightmare.
This weekend's Portland Pride Parade was bustling with crowds, but for one person, the festivities were remote.
And he was on video with me. I showed him the entire parade.
In Sonia Shepsis's one hand, Yvonne was on a video call from the detention center in Tacoma. In her other, a sign that reads, "Asylum saves LGBTQ+ lives. Don't send them back to Russia." Yvonne crossed the border into the U.S. from Mexico June 2024, fleeing Russia for fear of his life because he is gay.
What he would face in Russia now would be not only times so much worse than what he experienced back then when he was growing up.
Yvonne has been in ICE custody since June 2024 and detained at the Northwest ICE Processing Center in Tacoma since September of that year. He's filed for bond hearings and wrongful detention suits unsuccessfully over the past 26 months.
People have been in there for years.
Olia Katala is Yvonne's immigration attorney.
That bond hearing was denied, and partly because he does not have community ties to the United States because he was never released. So it's a catch-22.
Katala is fighting for Yvonne's release once again in the hopes that he can finally find safety and protection in the country that promised him so.
He's been doing everything right. He has no criminal convictions. He's not a criminal anywhere in the world. He's just himself.
As for his friend Sonia Shepsis, she can vouch Yvonne has found community in the most unlikely places.
He has met many different people who are gay in detention. And those of them who have been released, keep in touch with him and really support.
And maybe Pride next year won't have to be from a video call. In Seattle, Sharon Yu, King 5 News.
The number of people suing a former Tacoma immigration lawyer has nearly quadrupled. Alexandra Lozano is accused of defrauding hundreds of immigrants over several years. King 5's immigration reporter Sharon Yu details the legal battle now underway.
Virgen of Guadalupe, it's a big symbol in our culture.
Letitia couldn't help but notice Alexandra Lozano, the immigration lawyer, was using the Virgin of Guadalupe in her marketing materials.
I felt like I can trust her, yes.
Letitia paid $13,000 with that trust. She says she was never told what visa the firm applied her for. She's now at risk for possible deportation.
I feel angry. I feel devastated because that visa didn't apply to me.
Bella has a slightly different story. Her application for an immigration pathway reserved for survivors of domestic violence was based on real facts. But Lozano's office allegedly used a digital signature of hers when a real one was required.
And I was the one that found out that my case was denied.
A simple administrative decision led to a deportation order, and Bella being out $25,000.
I got red flags after red flags until like November. I said, that's it. I cried. I was frustrated.
The updated lawsuit lists 34 people who claim they were harmed. There are 34 stories, 34 lives, leaving people like Bella to ask questions as she plans her daughter's quinceañera.
I just look at her and I'm just like, am I going to be here for graduation? Am I going to be here for her wedding? But then I'm just like, no, think positive. Everything's going to work out.
On top of this amended lawsuit, for the first time, clients are also going to be asking for her assets to be frozen, which includes her pink private jet as well as her luxury real estate properties, so that it could be used to compensate the plaintiffs if they win the case. In Seattle, Sharon Yu, King 5 News.
A harbor seal pup has been euthanized after it was found with a gunshot wound. It comes just as Congress prepares to debate a bill that would expand when certain seals and sea lions can be killed to protect endangered salmon. King 5's Alex McClune explains why the seal's death is now part of a larger conversation.
Waffles was 3 weeks old when rescuers found him north of Bellingham and brought him to SR3 Animal Hospital in Des Moines after someone shot him in the head. Veterinarian and Executive Director Casey McGlenn thought they could treat his injury.
Because of that foreign body material in the brain, that would have led to infection and long-term suffering.
A CT scan revealed bullet fragments in his brain, forcing the hospital to put him down.
I think we were all immediately knew that this is what we had to do so that he would not suffer. However, I think there was a lot of frustration after that of seeing this over and over. This is our third case in less than 9 months.
Waffle's death comes as Congress considers a bill that would expand when Washington and tribal governments can lethally remove certain seals and sea lions to protect endangered salmon. It would broaden the federal permit process, allowing those animals to be killed. Washington Congressman Michael Baumgartner introduced the bill. He says it gives fish managers another tool to help struggling salmon runs due to feeding seals and sea lions. No one should be illegally poaching sea lions, he said about the seal pup's death. I hope the perpetrator is identified and brought to justice. This does not have anything to do with my bipartisan bill to try to save and restore our endangered salmon populations.
This proposal is very scientifically unfounded and fiscally irresponsible.
McGlenn says she fears the bill becoming law would lead to more deaths.
I think we have to make a greater investment in salmon habitat restoration. The science is pretty clear that the biggest threats that our salmon face are habitat destruction, toxins in their water, warming waters, and even things like ocean overfishing.
NOAA is asking anyone with information about who shot the harbor seal pup to come forward.
A first-of-its-kind experiment in Seattle is turning a marina into a possible safe haven for young salmon. Floating wetlands in Shoal Bay are already drawing in more fish than nearby open water. King 5's Brady Wakayama has an exclusive look at the project and why it could reshape salmon recovery.
They need every help they can get to survive.
This 300-foot floating wetland in Seattle's Shoal Bay Marina is designed to throw a lifeline to struggling salmon.
To our knowledge, nobody had tested them in salt water.
Since 2022, the University of Washington's Green Futures Lab, partnering with Earth Corps, has been testing whether this floating ecosystem can survive and help salmon do the same. With more than 75% of Seattle's shorelines altered, young salmon are losing the calm, shallow waters they need to grow. This project brings a piece of that back.
Perfect place to provide habitat that would provide shade for salmon, food for salmon, other aquatic advantages, ecosystem services.
The floating wetland has evolved, adding shelter shells and other features that create pockets of protection beneath the waterline. The change is clear right at the surface. In the wetland, the water is alive compared to a bare control site just down the dock.
We are definitely seeing more salmon here than we are at the, as I mentioned, at the control site that has no floating wetlands. And the plants are thriving.
The project costs about $250,000, funded by King County Waterworks and the Honda Marine Science Foundation. The 5-year study wraps next summer, with the results headed to the community and the Port of Seattle. The hope, this floating habitat doesn't just stay here, but spreads across more marinas, giving salmon more places to navigate and survive.
It's the first step, but I hope it's one that others can build on so that these can be scaled up to this marina and other marinas.
The King County Sheriff's Office dive unit patrols both Lake Sammamish and Lake Washington, ready to respond to water rescue calls across the county. King 5's Alex McClune spoke with a diver about the drowning incidents so far already this summer and also the toll they've taken.
A beach full of families, swimmers, and paddleboards.
It looks like the safest place ever.
It's exactly what Detective Matt Martin hopes to see on a 90-degree day, but knows a day can change when his phone rings.
There's people standing in the water everywhere, and it can give the false impression that this is safe, much like a swimming pool. And it's not.
A member of the King County Sheriff's Office Marine Rescue Dive Unit, Martin says he's responded to 4 drowning incidents this year.
Lake Sammamish, a young lady who slipped under the surface. Lake Washington, a young man who went into deep water at night, so that was a 3-day recovery. And sadly, a young child at Steel Lake in Federal Way.
Behind every drowning is a family or friend waiting for answers. This week in Pierce County, 60-year-old Dean Blanchard was heard yelling for help at Dash Point State Park in Federal away. His kayak started sinking about 100 yards offshore. Deputy Carly Capetto says his death is one of Pierce County's 4 drownings this year.
It is unknown why the kayak sank, and there were no life jackets on board.
That's the part that makes it despondent for us, that by the time we show up, it's a dive recovery, it's not a rescue, and it's preventable.
Martin says the hardest part comes underwater, wearing a full face mask connected by a communications cable to the surface. He searches through silt and weeds, bracing for what he might find.
You can hear your bubbles, you can hear the surface communicator talking to you.
The weight of the job doesn't end when they bring a family closure.
You absolutely want to find the kid, but you're not looking forward to it at the same time.
A difficult job, but one that Martin says provides post-trauma care and resources to keep them going. Martin hopes the tragedies he carries with him will remind you to make the right choices in order to prevent the next drowning.
When we come back, our King 5 weather team shows you what to expect in the forecast this weekend, right after this.
Well, the weekend is finally here, and the weather is going to be different. We've got a lot of clouds rolling in on Saturday and Sunday. Not that there won't be some dry time and some sun breaks, but we are looking at some scattered showers both days. I think it's going to be a little bit more isolated on Saturday with better chances of rain as we go into Sunday. Still, there's so much to do to get out and enjoy. If you'd like to head out maybe to Derby Days going on in Redmond, how about the River Days in Renton? Whaling Days, this is still going on in Silverdale, by the way. Kind of a cool event, and temperatures will be in the low 70s. Lots of clouds with some sun breaks, but again, a couple passing showers both Saturday and Sunday, by the way. And the infamous Bite of Seattle is back this weekend out at Seattle Center. And again, you might run into a very stray shower, but I think more clouds than anything. This is the culprit, this area of low pressure. This was a very strong tropical storm. This is now post-tropical Alita, just an area of low pressure at this point. But you could see it's heading our way. This has given us a few thunderstorms off and on over the past couple of days. Now it's going to finally move on shore. That's going to give us some clouds and eventually some rain as well. So if you're planning to do some hiking in the Cascades or the Olympic Mountains, by the way, you are looking at some patchy fog in the morning, and then look at that, lots and lots of clouds. So if you're hoping to get above the clouds and maybe get a good lookout point, this weekend is not going to be the best weekend for that. Plus, keep in mind, we have had those spotty thunderstorms off and on in the mountains, so some of those rocks might be a little bit slippery. So might be better to put that on hold. However, if you're still going to be hiking or camping, just know the conditions are going to be a little bit different than last weekend, for instance. If you're heading out to the water, oh my goodness, look at Lake Washington, Lake Sammamish finally warming up into the 70s. However, Puget Sound's still cold. Of course, rivers made up of a lot of melted snow. That's always going to be a little bit colder. Still be careful. Have your jacket and all those safety equipment on that you know to do. Then as we take a look a little bit further down the road, this is August 1st through August 7th. Believe it or not, we're about to enter into a brand new month. We are going to be slightly warmer than average. So warmer than average right now is anything above 79 degrees. So might be in the low 80s as we go into the first weekend of August, maybe a little bit warmer. And then we're going to dry out. Remember, we have rain chances this weekend. We also have more rain chances as we go into next Tuesday. So this will be a little bit of a change heading into our brand new month. So here we go. We've got some clouds in the morning. Some of this is going to be our marine layer, that free air conditioning that we like to get. That is coming back in full force again. That will help to cool us down. But notice across Puget Sound and the coast and through the Strait of Juan de Fuca, we've got clouds. Now in the morning, we'll start to see a few of those spotty showers. That is the area of low pressure finally beginning to move inland. And you could see some really good scattered rain, especially for the Olympic Mountains, all the way to the coast. This is definitely going to be the area over the weekend that sees the most rain. However, some of these will make their way east into the North Sound. Central and South Sound could also pick up on a stray shower or two, but the rainfall from Seattle south is not going to be as prevalent Saturday. I think we have a slightly better chance of getting in on some of the rainfall on Sunday. This is going to be a system that comes down from the Gulf of Alaska, and that's going to bring in some heavier rain, especially for the coast and the Olympic Mountains. But notice this does make its way east. So here's our front. Again, not going to be a ton of rain, but you might get a passing shower on Sunday if you don't see anything on Saturday. So just know that chance is there. Then as we get into Monday, we've got one other system that's going to kind of brush us on its way up into Canada. So again, for the coast, you might pick up on a few stray showers there, but I think for most of us on Monday, we'll actually be dry. And take a look at that. We're going to get into some afternoon clearing and some sunshine. So Monday's actually going to be a pretty nice day. As we take a look at how much rain is actually expected Saturday, for most of us, we're not going to get much in the way of accumulation. We throw in Sunday and that changes. So maybe some light accumulation, but again, for the coast up to almost half an inch to an inch of rainfall. That's good because we are in a moderate drought in that area. So getting some rainfall there is actually going to be a pretty good thing. So here we go. Temperature wise, it'll be pleasant. Those clouds, well, that's keeping us on the cooler side. Low to mid 70s across the area, both Saturday and Sunday. Heading into Monday, that sunshine in the afternoon helps temperatures to climb. We do have a small chance of rain on Tuesday. And then look at that, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Here are the final days of July with temperatures starting to ease up to slightly above the seasonal average. So we'll get warmer during the day, but we will hold on to those cool overnight lows.
Welcome back to The Week. Soon, Tacoma voters will be asked to raise taxes to improve roads and sidewalks. The city of Tacoma is looking for $200 million in new taxes to help fill potholes, create sidewalks, repave roads, as well as extend bike lanes. According to the city of Tacoma, if the measure passes, the average homeowner would pay $125 more in taxes. King 5's Drew Mickelson has all those details.
The need for road repairs is clear in Tacoma.
This is an example of a residential street in an area we've underinvested in.
The city's public works department has a hard time keeping up with the thousands of potholes and hundreds of streets without sidewalks.
The reality is that there's a huge infrastructure backlog, both from deferred maintenance and an initial investment in our city, and there's dedicated funding necessary to make that happen.
Tacoma just spent hundreds of millions of dollars on improvements, adding miles of bike lanes, repaving neighborhoods, and improving sidewalks, like along Sheridan Avenue near Wapato Park.
If you look, you can see what it looked like before, like it did when I was 10 years old. It just hasn't changed. And whenever you're doing this, now we have something that people are going to be able to use for years and years and years.
But the 10-year levy that paid for those improvements just expired. And for Tacoma to continue the work next month, they say they need voters to approve increases to utility and property taxes, costing the average homeowner about $125 a year.
All those taxes are structured as a percentage, so over the years, as inflation occurs, they're going to rise.
Ben Lackey is voting against the measure. He says it lacks specifics, and he's concerned repaving won't be a priority. His neighborhood is full of potholes and cracked roads.
But it also lists a whole bunch of other things, bike lanes and the like, all of which are nice, but like as a cyclist, I would like to start with a paved road and then maybe add the advanced bike lanes later.
So imagine a corridor with sidewalks and paving, street trees, all that.
The city says every project would improve Tacoma.
Honestly, these dollars are transformational. They really make a difference, right? So if you think of the quality of life on a street like this versus the street we just looked at Sheridan Avenue, for example, a completely different feel, a completely different community drive.
And a reminder, the primary election is August 4th. You can text the keyword VOTE to 206-448-4545 for information on the top races King 5 will be following and a voter registration guide, as well as a list of key election dates. The World Cup is now in the history books following Spain's big win against Argentina. Seattle hosted 6 matches and hundreds of thousands of fans over a period of about 3 weeks. Through it all, the FBI says Seattle avoided any major security problems. King 5's Brady Wakayama reports on how local and federal agencies kept the tournament moving safely.
It hasn't been very visible to the public, but there's been a lot going on behind the scenes.
While the world watched the action on the pitch, a massive security effort was keeping Seattle safe off of it.
Very well prepared for this, as well prepared as we can.
That was FBI Seattle's top agent before the first match. Now 6 weeks later, he says the operation delivered.
It's always a relief to get through something like this with no major incident.
Years of planning paying off. Local, state, and federal agencies working side by side. Hundreds of FBI personnel helped secure matches and packed fan zones, with preventative sweeps before each game to spot potential threats. A new counter-drone team also seized 42 drones that violated flight restrictions. None of those incidents led to injuries, but several cases are still under federal review. Agents were also embedded in command posts, with SWAT, hazmat, and evidence teams ready to respond.
I'm very happy with how everything turned out. So I would grade us very highly because really everybody was safe and was able to have a good time, and that's the most important thing.
An A or an A+ to all the police agencies involved, not just the feds, but the local ones as well.
Former King County Sheriff and King 5 law enforcement analyst John Urquhart says he's not surprised it all went smoothly.
This didn't happen overnight. There was a lot of thought, a lot of preparation that went into keeping everybody safe.
The final whistle has blown, but keeping the community safe continues.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed a look at the biggest stories of the week.